A very good morning to one and all present over here. Today I, Jharashri, student teacher of Army Institute of Education, is here to teach you one important yet interesting lesson by William Sidney Potter, famously known as O. Henry. But before we delve deeper into the lesson, I'd like to ask few questions just to check your previous knowledge. To begin with, my first question is, have you ever seen someone hold on to hope or experienced how a small act of kindness can make a world of difference? Today, we will explore a beautiful story by O. Henry, The Last Leaf, and we'll explore the themes of hope, sacrifice, and the transformative power of art. So without further ado, let's begin with the learning. So at first, let's look for the author's introduction. Yes, O. Henry was born as William Sidney Potter, as I've already told you. He was born in 1862 and lived until 1910. He was a renowned American short story writer, famous for his wit, wordplay, and twist endings. Some of his most well-known works are The Gift of the Maggie, The Ransom of Red Chief, and today's story, The Last Leaf. One more thing about O. Henry is that he often wrote about the struggles of ordinary people and painted vivid pictures of life in New York City. His stories have a way of tugging at our hearts while teaching us profound lessons. So, let's move on to the second segment of the learning, that is setting of the story. It is important to know the backdrop of the story before we move deeper into the chapter. The story is set in a Greenwich Village, a quaint neighborhood in the New York City, around the early 28th century. So, the depiction is about the 28th century, and most of the events unfold in a small apartment shared by two young artists, and the name of the two artists are Sue and John C. The setting captures the cold, dreary weather and highlights the hardships faced by struggling artists during this period. The weather in particular mirrors the mood of the story, that is bleak yet hopeful. Let's talk about the characters now. First we have is John C. She is a young artist and a sensitive girl who is struck with the disease called pneumonia. She becomes despondent, believing her life is about to end, and is tied with the leaves outside her window. Her emotional fragility represents the battle between hope and despair. On the other hand, we have a character whose name is Sue. She is John C.'s best friend. She is compassionate and nurturing, embodying the power of friendship and hope. Third character is Behram, which I consider him to be the hero of the story, and that will discuss at the end of the story how he becomes the hero. So talking about his trait, he is an elderly struggling artist who dreams of creating a masterpiece. Behram's selfless act of painting the last leaf becomes the ultimate symbol of sacrifice and hope. And here is the catch. Moving on towards the character sketches, talking about John C. She is creative but fragile, both mentally and physically. Her obsession with the falling of leaves reveals her inner despair, yet she symbolizes the human struggle to hold on to hope. Sue, she is the epitome of loyalty and kindness. She works tirelessly to uplift John C. and symbolizes the strength of friendship during tough times. Behram, he may seem like a gruff old man, but his actions reveal his depth and heroism. His painting of the last leaf, which he creates at the great personal cost, becomes his ultimate masterpiece, showcasing his selflessness. Let's move to the next segment, and that is major themes. The first major theme that we are going to discuss is hope versus despair. Okay. Talking about despair is Johnson's belief that her life ends when the last leaf falls. It represents what? It represents despair. And talking about hope, we can quote that Behram's painted leaf restores her hope, showing that even in the darkest moments, hope can prevail. The second theme that we are going to discuss is sacrifice and selflessness. Undoubtedly, Behram's act of painting the leaf, which cost him his life, highlights the power of selflessness. This story teaches us how small acts of kindness can bring profound change. The third most important major theme is the power of art. We all are aware that these three characters were artists. So let's know how art is depicted through their life. Behram's painting is more than an art. It becomes a lifeline for Jhansi. This shows how art can inspire, heal, and give hope. So moving on to the next segment, that is discussion of the key events that has taken place in the story. The first major event that has taken place in the story is when we get to know that the protagonist of the story, Jhansi, is suffering from a disease called pneumonia, and how she loses her hope, believing that she will die when the last leaf falls from the vine. Then in the next event we see how her friend Sue gives her all to cheer her up, comfort her, and also calls for the help. And who is the help? He calls Behram for the help. Third is the introduction of Behram, that he being frail braves the cold to paint a leaf on the wall, saving Jhansi's spirit. Lastly, talking about the twist. The twist is that Jhansi recovers after seeing the leaf that doesn't fall because it was painted. It was painted by Behram, only to learn later that it was Behram's painted masterpiece, as I already said. The most heartbreaking part of the story is when we get to know that Behram loses his life because of pneumonia. Because even in the harsh climatic condition, when there was a huge cold storm, he was there to paint a leaf so that he could restore the spirit of Jhansi. His brave act, or we can say the act of kindness, though took away his life, but saved one. So now we will be talking about the critical analysis of the story. Talking about the irony, O. Henry's uses of irony is brilliant. Behram, who had never created a masterpiece, achieves his dream through an act of love. His masterpiece isn't just a painting, it's a symbol of hope and selflessness that we just saw. Talking about the symbolism, the falling leaf represents Jhansi's declining hope. The painted leaf becomes a symbol of renewed faith and resilience. Talking about the narrative style of the story, it is very simple. Emotional way of storytelling method has been depicted. There's a twist ending which leaves a lasting impact. Lastly, let's talk about the learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, we'll be able to analyze themes of hope, despair, and sacrifice, which I've already discussed. We understand the depth of the characters and their development. We appreciate how O. Henry uses the irony and symbolism. We are now able to reflect on the value of selflessness and human connections. Few questions that I'd like to put forth so that we can wrap up with the discussion. So my first question is, why does Jhansi become so obsessed with the last leaf? Write down the answers in the comment section. What does this reveal about her character? This is the second question. Third, how does hope play in the last leaf? How? Lastly, What does this story teach us about the importance of friendship and human connection? Lastly, to conclude this chapter, The Last Leaf is a heartwarming tale that reminds us of the power of hope, sacrifice, and kindness. It encourages us to hold on to faith, even in the toughest time, and to value little acts of love that makes life beautiful. Thank you everyone for your patience listening. Have a good day.